Hello everybody, welcome back. It's been a little bit since I posted. Like I said before, I'm only going to be posting when the mood strikes or inspiration hits me. But I have a birthday card I need to make for my daughter. I'm going to get her a gift card. And I found this adorable Attention Shoppers stamp set through Stampin' Up, as well as the coordinating dies. And then this embossing folder reminded me of paper towels. And so I'm like, that will be good to work together. So I'm going to create a card using these. And then I'm also I'm thinking that I'm going to use the Poppy Parade, Pumpkin Pie, Daffodil Delight, Lemon Lime Twist, and then this really pretty blue. I want to make a gift card, a card small enough for a gift card. So I'm pulling out this assorted Memories and More cards and envelopes, and they have these little teeny guys here that obviously you can make into small cards. I thought this would be the perfect size for a gift card. So I'm going to work on that. And the other thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to use my stamp pads as paint because I don't have alcohol markers anymore, and I finally caved. I went to Stampin' Up and I ordered, I believe, 30 alcohol markers. They come in sets of 2, and I ordered 15 sets. They're created to blend together. The reason why I decided to go with Stampin' Up alcohol markers is because I liked the look of the tips on them. That to me is a big deal. And they also were between 30 and 40% cheaper than Copic, and I'm kind of on a budget. So I decided to do that, but I'm waiting for those. They should be here tomorrow. But in the meantime, these will work beautifully as paint to paint in my images. And if I was using a stamp that required more color, I would definitely I would wait for my Copic markers, but really these images that I'm going to be coloring in are so small that I don't need to do a lot of shading to get the point across. I'm going to be using black ink that I will emboss. And what that does is it just allows for the images to create like little walls so that my color doesn't, since I'm doing a watercolor type technique, it doesn't run all over the place. It still can run, but it won't be as bad. So that's what I'm doing with this. I did have every intention on coming on and showing you how to create this other card that I had made, but I became so frustrated with it. I don't even like it. This is the best that I could do with it. And it's not bad, but I definitely am out of practice. This is for my instructional coach that I am working with right now for summer school. I created 3 cards. I had stuff videotaped. I ended up just hating it all, so I deleted it. And this is what got me to realize I needed alcohol ink, because I really need the alcohol ink for the shading of the girls. And I used colored pencils on this. Originally, I had used, a different kind of aqua brush on it, and yada, yada, yada. And I couldn't get it to work. And this is finally the final piece. So anyway, wanted to share the card because you're not going to get the video, because trust me, this is not anything all that great. All right, I'm going to turn off for now, get my stuff going, and show you as we go along. For the stamping, I'm just doing a mass stamp session right now, and I want to give a Target gift card. I don't have any gray ink or silver embossing powder, so I'm just going to go with the black. And then I'm putting this in my Misty, and then I stamp, and then I turn it around and I stamp again. And what this allows me to do is not have to restamp with a block. And if, for example, the color's not right, or it's like a ghost image and it didn't stamp all the way, I don't have to worry about lining it up. I can just go ahead and pop this on and line it, and it just go, whoops, I didn't get it all the way stamped right, and re-stamp it because I don't have to take it off of my stamp platform. So I really like this chamois that I'm using to clean off the ink. This is the Poppy Red, I believe that's the name of it. Yeah, it's called Poppy Parade. Very vibrant red, it's beautiful. And then when this dries, I've discovered that this chamois gets exceptionally hard. It dries really quickly, and it takes a lot to re-moisten it. Like, I'm having to sit there underneath the faucet and just run water. So up here, I have a bowl of water, and I'm just storing my chamois in that between uses. I save water, it's ready for me, and I don't have to worry about re-moistening it. The other thing I'm doing is with these containers, the holders here, as I stamp, I just place them over the image that they're on, and that way I will always know what it is. Sometimes when you're trying to find it on this, it's like, ooh, what does that say? This way, I always know like what the image is and what it says. I will eventually take my Stampin' Cut and Emboss, the coordinatings, and put them in here as well. And I will put a plastic between the two. So I'm gonna stamp the rest of these images. I am not going to emboss, obviously, my cart or my sayings. I am going to emboss these images though, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do that as soon as I get there. First thing I did was I took all the images that I would like to emboss and I laid them out on my MISTI. I also took into consideration how big the die cuts are to make sure that when I die cut them, there's enough room for them to die cut and with the edges. And I kept them kind of low so that when I rotate this, I'm going to be able to stamp the images again. Now, this is always a risk for me because of the type of pad that I'm going to use. I do not advocate for every color of embossing powder under the sun. I used to have every kind of embossing powder under the sun, but I discovered that really the best kind for me is a basic black. And that's because the only time I really use embossing powder is to color in and use them as little walls. And so I don't want them colored. So I use a clear embossing ink. This also would be fantastic if you want to use color embossing powders because you could do any color on top of this. Trying to put a red over a black embossing powder can be a little bit sketchy. And if you start to color it, sometimes the ink under bleeds over into your image if it is a water-based ink and it reactivates. It may emboss beautifully because it stays wet, but once the emboss is on it, that doesn't necessarily mean that your ink is set. So with a clear embossing pad, when you emboss with whatever color you want, and then you go to color in, you're not gonna get any bleed through because it embossed on something that doesn't have any color and the embossing powder turned into a plastic. Now, I'm using this because it's the only thing I found. It works, it does a nice job, but really any clear embossing powder can work for you. What you want to do though is you want to remove any kind of static or ink, and they have, or moisture. They have static pouches. I wish that I had one. I don't. So I'm actually using a powdered puff that I have. This is embarrassing. It's deodorant. I no longer am using it on my pits, but I needed something. So what that does is it just removes all the extra moisture. So I know that when I go to emboss, it's going to stick where I want it to stick. And I always get really nervous at this point because since this is clear, I'm not really gonna know if all of my lines come through until after I lay my powder out. That's why the MISTI is important, because if by chance it doesn't work, because this is a new stamp set, I'm really taking a risk. I didn't break these stamps and I didn't season them. Seasoning basically means using them over and over with ink. But since I didn't do that, there's a chance that it might be a little bit bubbly. And when I emboss it, it may still be bubbly. And if I have my images still in the exact placement on my MISTI, then I can go back through and restamp again with no problem. But to ensure that I have adequate coverage, I am just gonna use this stamp press here. I don't know what this is called, but I love it. If you want anything I'm using, I do have links provided down below. Scrapbook.com is kind of the best place for the MISTI and also like anything by Hero Arts. And then I also have my Stampin Up website down below as well. Okay, it looks good. I can kind of see the images there. I'm gonna pop this out now. Then I'm going to go over here and just lay this out. The cardstock that I'm using is also important. I'm using a smooth cardstock, which works really nicely for embossing images. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. There is a little bit of residual powder, so I can go through with a paintbrush and kind of paint that away. Right here, there we go. And then I just take my embossing powder when I'm done, but I'm gonna use this again. I'm gonna go emboss this with my heat, my embossing gun. And then I would just take, when I'm all done, and put it back in here. Something that other people have done that I think is really clever is they actually take an industrial size or bulk embossing powder. They put it in a large Tupperware container, and then whenever they want to emboss anything, they just take their project and they just push it into the Tupperware container, tap it off, and then reseal the Tupperware container. I am gonna eventually go to that. I just haven't had the opportunity yet to do so, but I think that that's really smart. I'm gonna emboss this and then I'm gonna do the other side. That side's done, and I really need to get a static pouch because there is some areas that it picked up on, which I'm not really happy about. However, since I am gonna cut this out with my die cuts, I'm not too concerned about it. But if this were card front, I probably would reconsider how I would color in these images. I wouldn't do a water-based at that point just because of that. So I need my static. The powder here is not working as well as a static pouch does. And static pouches are extremely inexpensive. You can find them, Stampin' Up has them even. They can run anywhere between $2 and $4. So it's a really great tool to have, and you'll use it time and time again. So once again, going to take my clear embossing powder, and my clear embossing pad, and get this one stamped just like I did up there. And then I'll come back in. I'm probably gonna do my sentiments all different colors just to make it fun. This is for a birthday card, and so I do want to make it festive and fun. So I'm gonna do all the sentiments, different colors, the colors I haven't used yet. I don't know if I'll do the yellow. I probably am gonna do the yellow on my embossing folder image that looks like that napkin. That's probably what I'm gonna do there. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think that worked well. Let's see here. I see all those images through, which is a good sign. And then I'm just gonna take this, and again, we're not worried how much embossing powder I throw on this because we're gonna save it all. So it doesn't even matter. We can, in fact, I'll even show you, we can dump all of it on here like that. Just dump it all on. Doesn't even matter if we use it all because we're just gonna throw it all back in. So again, I would recommend not this, but an actual Tupperware or Rubbermaid, you know, a sealed container, so you can obviously seal it up when you're not using it. And then that's inexpensive and you don't have to worry about doing this. So these little tidy carts can run $7 or $8. And when you do this, if you use other colors in your tidy cart, you're gonna want to be meticulous with making sure that you get all of the right color back into your jar. So like right here, I'm just really dabbing this in, making sure that I get it all back in there. And then in addition, I have some that's sticking. So I'm just gonna take my paintbrush and I'm just gonna paint it all down so that I can get all of that residual powder out. You can take it one step further if you use more than one color and rinse this out every time and make sure it's really nice and dry, and that will also allow for the colors not to be cross-contaminated or mixing. I speak from experience, my friends, because I have used multiple colors in here and boom, I get left with blue specks and silver specks in my black. So don't make that same mistake that I did. I am gonna go out and get a Tupperware container. And people that really enjoy using embossing powders that have different colors, I've even seen the Tupperware or the Rubbermaid's containers stacked up with the different colors in it. And it's just so clever because you stamp it, you dip it into the powder, you tape, you tap off the excess, you emboss, get the lid back on, and you're good to go. You don't have to go through all of this. Even though this is clear, since it is an embossing type ink, it is going to stay wet. It's a pigment, it's a clear pigment in essence. So since it's staying wet, we want to get it removed, because believe it or not, it may not be, depending on the climate you live in and the moisture level, the humidity level, it may not be all the way dry by the next time you use it. And if you're using, say, a StazOn or something that's permanent or waterproof, it can really screw your pad up, your ink pad. So always, always, always clean off your stamp sets, even if they are clear. You use clear ink because you definitely are going to pay for it later. I went ahead and put the stamps on my paper and then picked them up. Wanted to show you how these stamp pads work. I like these pads. They're good. They are well inked, but I understand how they work kind of, but I gotta, okay, so I still have a hard time. They pull up and then you push them back like that, and it makes it nice and stable. But I appreciate this extra little bit right here because it doesn't like lend itself for me to get too inky unless I'm being really careless. However, the mechanics of this are just really a lot, I think. I also don't particularly like the size of them. I think that they created the size so you have to buy their storage units. But with that being said, there's also nice little like little feet, and then little spots right here for the feet. So I stack mine, and I don't purchase any kind of special storage for them. I do like them, and I think that with time, I'm gonna grow to really love them. They remind me a lot of other ink pads that I've used. I prefer this type of ink pad that is not a really hard, is it the foam ones that are hard or the felt ones? Anyway, these just work really nice. And so I like them. They're a nice cross between the old Catherine Puller. I don't know if she has new ones out anymore. I used to love hers. I still do. I don't have them anymore because I donated them when I thought I was getting rid of my stash. But her ink pads were really nice, but they were super, super like soft, which I thought was great. But they also dispersed just a ton of ink. And so I would go through ink really quickly. And so these kind of remind me of those, just one step up, like a little bit harder. And so I love the pads, which is the most important thing to me, really. And I appreciate that there's feet on them and little spots that I can put my, oh, those all like did, that's beautiful. You know, I can store these nicely. So just gonna take it, pull it, and then boom. This also to me is super tight in the sense that a little bit hard to maneuver. I'm sure that with time it'll loosen up, but I like that it clicks in place. I also like that since it's does this, you can, they store upside down. So the ink is always gonna be here and I'm not worried about this coming undone. So they're pretty good. That's just my 2 cents on these stamp pads. I placed all of my ink pads or my stamps back in here, put them on the image. Then I'm just gonna take this and put it on top like so. And I will take my dies once I'm done and slip it on the top, and that will all store together. I won't have to worry about where my dies are or anything like that. They will all be right here, nice and compact and ready to go. For this next step, I am going to color in the images, these ones that I embossed here. I'm gonna take that off and I'm gonna use my glass mat. Now, I know that I have right here a whole bunch of paint, but what is wonderful about this glass mat is that you can just take an X-Acto knife and literally scrape that paint off. You can do that with all craft mats. You know, you'll end up ruining some of the craft mats. So I like my glass mat because I can do my gel press on it. You don't ever want to put a gel press on a silicone mat or wood. It's always better to use glass or an acrylic, like big acrylic stamp block. So I like to use my gel press on my glass mat, and that's where this paint came from. And so I just have to go through like this and scrape off everything. So if you have a glass mat, you don't want to use a glass mat for everything. On a lot of things, I like working with a more traditional craft mat, but when you want to do, like when you want to use your ink as paint, this is a wonderful surface to do that on, right? So there's this. This right over here is going to come off because I want to put my paint directly here. And I'm not really worried about that spot right there because it's not going to pick up with my paint. And I am going to just take and smoosh out like that. And then the red. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and just take some paint brushes. You can like spray a little bit of water in each of these. You don't want to go too crazy because you don't want them to start moving and mixing. So I like to kind of do the center. And then like, for example, whoop, don't do that. I just literally smash this into the side. Don't do that. And then, you know, you're going to take your paint brushes and you're just going to start to paint in your image. I wish I had a smaller brush than this, but I don't, so that's okay. I'm just going to pick up some of that yellow and I'm going to dab it on into my candles, flame all my candles. And I like to just do like mass coloring. It's like, okay, where am I gonna need all the yellow at? And then I just put all my yellow where I'm gonna need all of my yellow at. And then I move on from there. All right, make sure that you clean your brush between mixing colors because you'll end up with an ugly brown. I think I wanna make these flowers red. And you could even do different colors with the flowers, and I might do that. I might do a couple different bouquets here. And depending on how vibrant you want your color to be, depends on how much water you add to your ink. And you can always pick up water with your brush and then go in. But I just, as you know what I did, I just sprayed it on out, all right? And so let me go ahead and do that on over here. So I think for this, I'm going to make these flowers red and debating between yellow and orange. I think I'll do orange. I would like to use some purple on this right in here, the accent on the cake, as well as the wine bottle label. But as you can tell, I don't have purple, but I can make purple. If I use blue and red together, it's important that I don't mix anything else in with these colors because I could get brown. And it has to be a fairly true red and true blue for this to work. So if it ends up being too dark, I just mix in, a little bit more red and it'll give it more burgundy. And I'm just gonna mix this through until I get the purple that I want. I think we're about there. So I'm gonna take a little bit off right here. And there we go. And I have a really pretty purple. Now, when I go ahead and do my cake, I am actually just gonna try to use red first because that blue undertone may end up making it too dark. So I'm going to just use the red first and then we'll see where we're at with that. And then I may go in with the purple. But if you don't have a lot of space like me, or you are on a budget and you like to watercolor and you like to stamp and you like to do all the things, I would just recommend that you do a water-based stamp pad and you use your your ink like I just did as paint, as your watercolor paint, because it will work. I mean, you can blend out, if you get any primary color, you can mix colors. Technically, you only need a red, blue, and yellow stamp pad. And then from there, you can mix purple, orange, green, all of it. So I strongly recommend that you go ahead and purchase watercolor stamp pads. If you want the stamp pads I'm using, again, I do have the Stampin' Up link provided for you down below. And if you end up with more than a $150 order, not saying that that's going to happen, but if you do, don't place it. Contact me and say, hey, I have a $150 order. And what I'll do is I'll set up a show for you, and then you can place the order, and then you can get the credit. And then that will help you. So that's something that I can just do for you guys is that, okay? All right, I got a little bit out of the lines, but that's okay. I'll go in with some blue in a minute because I didn't use all my blue to make my purple. But I think that I like how that ended up. I think that those ended up really nice. So right here, and now that I said that, oh, there it is. I'm just gonna go in right there. Sometimes you can camouflage it a little bit. And let me check again to see what kind of ink pad these are. So yeah, this is a water-based dye ink. These are really the best because they mix when they're wet, but once they dry, they're dry. They literally dye the paper. It takes a little bit of time for them to dry. And so you have some wiggle room with that, and you want to be careful with it. But think about when you dye your pants or something, you dye a dress or fabric. It moves around and it can mix, but once it's set up, it's good to go. So there we have this. I'm gonna go ahead, let my dog out, and take my die cuts and die cut this out, and then I'll show you the assembled cards. I am going to use these dimensionals. I love these. They are fantastic. I like because they're like honeycombed, so you don't get any wasted space. A lot of times with the circle ones, I would use all the little dots, and then I'd have leftover foam, and I was that person that would cut that down and use it still. And I'm still gonna use the edges here, but this just really allows for very little waste to happen. And I like using black dimensional. I did order some white ones, but these come in 2 different sizes, the little minis right there, and then the bigger ones. So these are fantastic. Really like these. And again, they're Stampin' Up. I got everything die cut out, and I wanted to show you. First of all, this is that embossing that I showed you before, and I love it. It reminds me of a paper towel. I think that is perfect for the vibe that I'm going with. And then for this particular card, I'm gonna use this right here. Now, if you are planning on die cutting out your shopping cart, you don't need to stamp it. Just simply die cut it in the colors that you would like. The stamp really is for if you are going to build a scene, because it was pointless for me to stamp it. As you can tell, it would have probably been better if I had just die cut it. But I wouldn't have learned that had I not done it. And then this is how that one, it's really cute. That one came out. And then I'm using that, this, and then also this. So that's what they look when they're all die cut out. And the ones that I'm not going to use, but I thought I would show you, this one and this one right here. I love these. These turned out so good. And then of course I have over here my sentiments that I'll make some more cards with. This one was kind of funny because when I die cut, the corner was cut notched here, so I had to like trim it around the words. Not sure I'm going to use it. All right, I'm going to set these off to the side for now. Put these up over here, and what we're going to do is, this is my card front. It's from that set that I showed you. It is 4.25 by 3.25. So I cut this down to a 4x3. I wanted it to be a Target gift card, so I really want the red and white to be there. So I'm going to use my Poppy Parade And there's a couple different ways that you could do this. You could just swipe the stamp pad over the edges of the card to make it red, or I don't want to use that much ink. Whenever I do that, I feel like I use way too much ink. I'm just going to pat it out like that right there. Blending brush, these are from Stampin' Up, and then I'm just going to go on through and just blend it on through like so. And I'm not being super careful, you know, with it. You can definitely see my brush strokes, and I'm really okay with that because I'm gonna be covering up most of that with my little piece right here, right? So just getting that all nice and in. And I don't feel like I used an obsessive amount of ink on this. I do want to go over that top again, so I am going to throw down a little bit more. Just tap it down. Does not take a big tap. And I swear I use a lot less ink when I do it this way than if I were to go directly in to my ink pad at that point. All right, so again, this is water-based dye ink, so it's going to react with water, but it does dye the paper. So eventually it will dry and it'll set up nicely, and it won't react much, if any, with water if it gets wet. Unlike, you know, like a distress ink, which is really cool. Those always interact with water no matter what. All right. There we go. I think I like that coverage. I am going to clean up my space and then we'll come back and assemble the card. I'm not sure if you're supposed to do this, but whenever I use these little brushes, I really like them. However, if you don't get all that ink out, they can transfer depending on what kind of ink pad you use. So what I like to do is when I'm all done at the end of the day, I like to put them in a mason jar with a little bit of soapy water and let them soak, and then rinse them out overnight. In the meantime, I'm just keeping it over in my bowl of stamp foam cleaner and water over there. All right, so here we are right here. I do want to use a little bit of black on this just to ground it. I have noticed that, oh, that corner got wet. Oh well. Like, to me, that just needs a little bit of grounding. And when I put the happy birthday on, that needs some grounding. So you can just use any black ink pad and just ink your edges of your sentiment, your card base, and then also the card itself. I'll do that in just a moment as well. And it just makes it, I don't know, I just feel like it comes together a lot better. And I always like to have black somewhere on a card just to give your eye a minute to rest. If the majority of the colors are dark, then I like white. But it just, I don't know, it just needs a grounding, if that makes any sense. Okay. Loving what that emboss looks like. Huh, okay. Now, hopefully this is dry enough. Normally, I would put my name on the back, my stamp, not sure where it is, so we're gonna hold off on that for this one. And I would assemble it first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ink up 3 of the edges, and then I'll ink up that creased edge after I fold the card. But I'm not folding the card yet because I've discovered that when I try to put together a card that is folded and I flatten out, I never can get things straight. So I don't know if that's just some weird mental hang up or if there's a real science behind it. All right, so this is gonna go here, and let me go ahead and pull my craft mat back out because I think that there's a little bit of a glare and I don't want that to be in the video. So let me go ahead and pull this out right here. I know it's been well loved. I really like this silicone mat because I can see like everything through it. And it also cuts on that glare. Okay, so here we go. I want to put this, one of the problems with this is you have to know where your crease is, and that can be kind of hard. If you don't want your back of your card to look ugly, then what I would encourage you to do is just blend out that entire red down the back. Hindsight 2020, I probably should have done that, but well, I didn't, and that's okay. Like I said, it's going to my daughter, so she'll just be happy what's in the gift card, which is going to be the Target gift card. So, all right, there we go. And then right about there. Okay, super cute. One thing that I wanted to tell you is if you do stamp the bottom of these and then run the die over it, you're gonna notice that you have a white top. So I just trimmed it off, but I would encourage you, if you're gonna use the die, don't even bother trying to stamp, just use the die. Okay, and then for this one, I'm just thinking about doing something like this. So I have my little cart here, and then I'm gonna stuff it. I'm gonna stuff it with my bag, my flowers. I think maybe I'll do my flowers in the back. I'm gonna have them pop up over that white too. I just like the way that looks. And then finally, my birthday cake, like so. And then I'm gonna put my happy birthday probably there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the card assembled, and then I'm gonna come back just because you don't need to watch all of that. You know what I'm gonna do. I am probably going to make that all one piece, and then to adhere the whole thing, I'm going to use my Stampin' Dimensionals, and these are just basically foam adhesive that gives dimension to your card. Finish the card, and this is what I came up with. I added a little bit of stickles just to make it pop on the candles as well as the flowers, but I think it's super cute. I'm really loving this card size. It's 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch. I did not think I would enjoy working on it so much, but I did, so much so that I made 3 more cards with the stuff that I cut out. So this is the other one I made with this stamp set. And again, this stamp set is called Attention Shoppers, and it's the stamp set and then also the dies. So for this one, I took the orange that I had, I forgot the name of it, sorry, laid it down, like smooshed the stamp pad on my glass pad, and spritzed it with water, and then dabbed it through, like ran it through. Sorry, let me mask some of that glare. I apologize. Okay. The craft mat is ugly, but does the trick. So that's what I did for this. And then I used, I think it was the daffodil yellow on this, just used my brushes, and then that beautiful red. I used my brushes on that, and then I wanted to experiment a little bit. And so I spritz some water over it, and it did semi-mute it. And I thought that was really interesting. So I like how this turned out. I used pops of color right here, just what was in my stash. Did not use my Misty to do my happy birthday sentiment because I had already placed everything. And I was concerned that it wouldn't stamp correct with the dimension because I did use those dimensional adhesives. And I wish I would have, because as you can tell, the happy birthday is not real crisp. I might have to go back in with a black pen and carefully outline it. Not quite sure. I may just leave it though. So that's my second card. My third card, I wanted to use up the rest of like the cart here. And I just loaded up a cart, and that's what I came up with. This one again, I used, I think it's like the lemon lime green, and I used my blending brush, and then I spritzed it just to see what would happen. and it did interact with the water quite nicely. For this, I used that blue, and I had kind of a lot of fun playing with this because at first I went over it with a stamp pad. I swiped it and it left really harsh lines. And so I quickly sprayed it with some water, and then I went in with my brush and blended in more blue and sprayed it again. And that's what I got. I like it. I think it looks really nice. This is what I did with that one. This one, you can really see how the water interacted with the stamp pad, and it does interact quite nicely. Then I just did that yellow, the yellow that I had with my brush, and then I did the dip technique with the orange here, added a little bit of sparkle across there, 3 little pops of color, and then of course added the dimensional foam to adhere the whole thing. These are my cards that I created with that stamp set and die set. Really cute. It's kind of fun to get back into this. I know this is a longer video. I hope that you enjoyed it and you were able to glean something from it. You probably already know everything I said, but maybe it reminded you and it inspired you to create. If you are interested in anything I used, the Stampin' Up, I do have the link provided below. Everything else you can get from scrapbook.com. I'll provide that link as well. I appreciate it if you use that, because again, I'm not really affiliated with anyone anymore. I'm just doing this on my time. So I do get a little bit of a kickback whenever those links are used, and that does help me continue on doing a YouTube. I am going to hopefully have a video coming out about once a week. I have some new product that I want to share with you that's super exciting. So please come back and join me. If you haven't subscribed, do so if you'd like to, and just slap that like button. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, I am not Bets Golden.